Welcome to our podcast where we look for opportunities in our lives to see a beautiful view. I'm Paul.
And I'm Candy. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to everyone who reached out with positive feedback and encouragement after our first episode.
Did you notice our intro music is a little different this week?
I did.
We recently reconnected with our friends Tyler and Kelsie when we were down in Texas. They are songwriters, musicians, and singers, and their band is called The Hopeful Few. You can check them out on Spotify. You will find the link in our show notes. Anyway, they have graciously given us permission to use their beautiful new song, I'll Go Anywhere With You, on our podcast.
Yes, and we are so excited. The first time I heard this song, I totally got teary, and I was like, oh my gosh, that could literally be our life theme song.
Yeah,
thank you, Tyler and Kelsie.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's just, the words are right on. It's just a great way to complement what we're doing here with the podcast.
Yes.
So we're excited to share with you again today.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the beautiful view.
We could climb a mighty mountain, float on down a winding river, travel back in time and face our future too. Oh, I'm not scared of where I'm going, 'cause I know whose hands I'm holding. Oh, I'd go anywhere as long as you're going to. Well, I'd go anywhere as long as I'm with you.
So we got some great feedback from you, our listeners, after the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked you what you would like to hear and what you would like us to talk about. And so you told us you wanted to hear more about our life on the road, our RV journeys, our faith journey, about moving from a house to our RV and then from an RV back into a house again. So basically what you were telling us is tell us everything. Everything. So we're going to do our best to cover all of these things in our upcoming episodes.
Yes. So where do we start? Well, I came across this quote a week or two ago, and I think it's a good starting place. So we'll start there. So the quote says, "We spend so much time worrying about the past or planning for the future that we forget to fully live in the present. But the truth is, the present moment is all we have. So let's make the most of it and embrace every opportunity to create meaningful experiences and memories." So when I look back to when we hit the road full time in our RV, this sentiment was exactly what was on my mind. I wanted to be more present in the moment. We had a lot of things that we kind of, left behind and some healing to do. And I didn't want to stress a whole lot about what we had ahead of us because some of that was kind of daunting. Like we had to learn how to live in an RV, right? We knew nothing about living in an RV.
Everything was new.
So, but ultimately, I just really wanted to soak up every moment.
So we left behind some things in our life. We had decided to kind of draw a line in the sand and see where God would lead us. Mm-hmm. But we did leave behind some things. We left behind grief. Mm-hmm. We were suffering with work burnout, ministry burnout, mm-hmm. and those two things had gotten wrapped up together mm-hmm. because of being on staff at a church. We both suffered with anxiety, mm-hmm. Which if you've ever suffered with that, it's something that is unpredictable. Mm-hmm. You can't control it. You can't, if you're in a little bit of an episode with that, you can't get out of it.
It's a tailspin situation.
So that was hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So we needed to create some space for ourselves. We needed to take some time. We needed to allow healing to take place. Mm-hmm. We needed to bond together as a couple.
And as a family.
Yeah. I think we already said that in the last episode that, I was working too much mm-hmm. and we didn't get many chances to be together.
Yeah.
We needed some space to refocus, to figure out what was important to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we needed to be very intentional about the way we exercised our faith, the way we were together in our marriage, our relationship with each other,
Yep.
and our relationship with our children.
We just needed to shift our focus to the present time, to each other, and to learning to trust the Lord's leading in our lives again. There was a scripture that we clung to during that time, and actually we still do. It's hanging above your desk, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I just moved it back in there after finishing building my new desk.
You did. So we had it printed on the back of we had some little business cards with our moving house.
Because we would come across other families on the road, and they would often give us a card about their family,
right?
And it's like, oh, that's a thing. We should probably get something.
So it had our little logo on it and our names and our email address and all that kind of stuff, website and stuff. But on the back of the card, we had this scripture printed on it, and it actually kind of became our family's theme verse. Like, we lived by it, and the scripture is Proverbs 3:5-6. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take." And I prayed that scripture over our plans when I was trip planning and stuff like that. Like, that really was my prayer was for, the Lord to show us which path to take, literally. So.
Yeah. And it's interesting now, because we were talking about being in the moment to find enough time and space so that we could really focus on our family and what we were doing that day at that moment. And this passage actually talks about that, because the future tense here is the last part of it, where it says he will show you which path to take. So we're not to trust our own understanding or what we can think up, because we can come up with some really good sounding plans.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it'll make sense. It'll be logical. It'll seem like, and it's not like you don't plan. Like, of course we still planned, but as far as our future goes, we wanted to make sure that we were on his path.
Of course.
And so that's a future thing that we gave to God to map out for us. And we just prayed that we would be aware of where he was leading us.
Yeah. And I mean, that's still true today, even though we're not traveling all the time anymore. I mean, that still applies to how we live life today.
Yeah, so it was a long process from the point where we both gave up being employed and having a regular paycheck, to getting to the point where we gave up our house and then bought the truck and the RV. And that truck was the first truck I ever owned.
Yeah.
So I went from 0 trucks in my driving history to a 3/4 ton diesel.
Yeah. It was a big difference.
A huge difference.
Yeah. We had a lot to learn.
A lot to learn. And so that was a long process. But gradually we got to the point where we trusted more and more where that path was going to take us. But the main thing was, through that time, is that we learned the principle of living one day at a time.
Yes.
So what did that process look like from your point of view?
Well, for me, I turned to scripture. I had been through a lot. I'd been through miscarriage and the loss of our baby girl, Lily. Lots of depression and grief. Anxiety, as we said earlier. It was really time for me to kind of soul search and begin the healing process, because The thing about when you get so busy, with just life, you kind of just suppress a lot of that a lot of times.
You push things to one side because you can't handle it. Like you've got too much going on in the moment,
right?
To be able to live that moment, and you just start to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So you have to push things to one side. The only thing you can push to one side is the stuff that you really don't want to deal with.
Right. And of course, who wants to deal with all of that? And for me, that came out in a form of anxiety where I would have times where I couldn't function. Or depression where I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning, So that's, for me, that's what I was healing from in that time, and turning to scripture. And I started just reading through the Bible. The first time I read it through from cover to cover, starting in Genesis, ending in Revelation. After that, I started doing a chronological plan, and I'm currently on my 7th journey through the Bible. So I'm still learning.
And at points you had a large group of people online who were
doing it with me,
studying through the Bible with you.
Yeah.
I remember that there would often be times where I would come in and see how you were doing, and you were in the middle of like a 2-3 hour study session.
Yeah, I kind of gave it a lot of time
with like notes that you were putting out there for the group to read about that reading that day.
Yeah. That was a very healing thing for me, and I learned a lot through that process. And I also started, during that time of scripture reading, I also started journaling a lot too. And through that came a lot of reimagining, as a wife and a mom, like what I wanted for our family. That
was part of that reconnecting, like finding a relationship with each other and with our kids.
Right. Yeah. So I started just kind of trying to figure out what was our plan, what was our purpose and mission.
Yeah, it was about being aware of who was around us, at what place we were at, seeing if there were other people that maybe needed something. Anything to get ourselves out of our own heads.
Yeah. It was really interesting too, along our travels, how many people we met that used to be in ministry and had hit the road. There were a bunch. That's kind of how I learned to start taking one day at a time and start figuring things out and healing from things that I was dealing with. How about you? What kind of, what would you say that process looked like for you?
Well, for me, there were a couple of times. One just came to mind, actually. It was the very last Easter services that I was at the church. And we had, my team were amazing. And we all worked really, really hard to get everything ready for that Easter celebration. We had like 4 or 5 services that day, or one the previous day and 4 the next, or something like that. And so we were extremely busy, tired. And there was one evening I came out after we had had some technical rehearsals, and we had been doing all kinds of like lighting effects and video effects and just, all out. And I came outside and looked up at the sky, and the stars were starting to come out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just comparing our little efforts at creating an awe-inspiring environment, and then just walking outside and being like, well.
Okay, God wins.
God wins. He's the most creative.
Yeah.
So there was that time. But when we started out on the road and started living in the RV, there were times when we had to come back into the Permian Basin to get work done for clients. And so we needed somewhere to stay that was close enough for me to drive into the city. But we didn't want to stay in the city. So we would stay at this state park called Monaghan's Sandhills. And it was basically a large expanse of sand hills in the middle of nowhere. It was a nature reserve. It was just beautiful because it was such a clean environment. It was just sand as far as the eye could see in every direction. And actually there, you remember where the kids got the sand discs? And so you can rent sand discs there, or you can buy your own, and they're just plastic discs that you sit on that you could slide down the sand dunes.
Yeah, and we've actually used them here to slide down the snow banks. They're dual purpose.
Dual purpose. And so what I liked to do in the evenings was go out on my own, and I'd climb up from where the RV park was, which was down in kind of a hollow beneath or in between the sand dunes. And I'd climb up on top of the sand dunes and start walking as it was getting dark. And so I'd like to see the sun go down, and then the stars start coming out. And then there's that point where the sun just creeps down over the horizon and the sand dunes become silhouettes. And so you're walking on these sand dunes, and all you can see is the stars, the sky, and it's almost like you're floating on the surface of the earth. It's just
pretty cool.
It's just a really amazing experience. And because it's so big there, like you just see for miles, it just gave you a sense of feeling really small. And that to me was awe-inspiring.
Right.
And we saw many different places when we were on the road that were in that category. But that sense of awe is what I needed to hold on to know that I'm just one of the grains of sand.
Yeah.
And that
vast creation.
In a vast creation with so many other people. And I know that sense of awe really promotes community. Because once we accept the fact that we are small and insignificant, then we tend to stop thinking about ourselves and start thinking about others. Like what is my part in the community that we're in, whether that was on the road and the people that were living or staying in their RVs around us, or now as we're in Bellevue, what is our place in this community? What is our place in Jackson County? And keeping that sense of awe, or the sense of perspective, like a sense of insignificance in a good way.
Yeah. Basically getting out of our own heads and acknowledging that there's a bigger plan, right? Like there's something bigger than us.
Absolutely. So what would you say were some of the best things that came of this new way of thinking and the habits that we were starting to make each day?
Yeah, I think there was a lot that came out of that. We kind of restructured pretty much everything we did. We had a new perspective on life, a new approach to things. Everything just became more meaningful, right? Like we tried really hard to, our family time was more meaningful. Our time with extended family was more meaningful. We got to spend a lot of time with my parents and siblings and nieces and nephews. When we first hit the road, we actually camped in my parents' backyard for a few months just while we were learning how an RV works.
We call that mooch docking.
It's mooch docking.
Which can happen with families or with friends or basically anyone who has a yard big enough to park an RV on. That becomes a great mooch docking spot.
Yes. So, but another thing that kind of came from that too was family meal time, right? Like that was a really big thing to us, was to have a sit down dinner in the evening, most evenings, because we'd missed so many of those through the years when the kids were little. So,
so we'd sit down at our three-legged table.
Our three-legged table, yes, in the RV. And that became a time where we just kind of talked about the day, talked about things that were going on. There were a lot of times that we had like a little family devotional time around that. So This just became a really special time for us. So
when you think of a dining table, don't think of the dining table you're thinking of. We're talking like 18 inches by maybe 3 feet.
Yeah, it's something like that
for all four of us, and then dogs underneath our feet.
Yeah.
So
it was a close encounter. It's okay.
Yeah.
But we also learned to work as a team, right? So
Yes.
whether it was set up and tear down of the RV or fixing something that broke, which that happened pretty regularly, or whatever, we just kind of learning to navigate around each other in 400 square feet. We kind of learned to kind of move together and do different things, but our
sharing responsibilities,
and
which changed over time as the kids got older. As they got older and bigger, they gradually started taking on more and more little tasks to get the thing done.
They did. Yep. But and I think our our holiday celebrations and stuff, even those became more meaningful. So, when you have a house, you can do big parties and big Christmas and big this and big that, and
pile up the gifts,
lay on the big Christmas tree and all the things and decorations and stuff. Well, in an RV, you're really limited on space. So we had to kind of reimagine what that was going to look like. And you know what? Some of our Christmases in the RV were some of the sweetest memories that I have on the road. So one of my favorites was the year that we did kind of an old-fashioned Christmas theme where we all did handmade gifts. And Emily and I made our stockings, and I sewed them, and she crocheted the top rim part of them. And it was fun, just kind of keeping it really simple. And it's funny, and it's kind of cool too, since we're back in the house now. A lot of the things that we did on the road, we still do in the house. They love it. They love it. They remember the warm fuzzy feeling or whatever that came from some of those things. And
we would sit down and we would ask each other the same set of questions at the end of the year. Like, what was your favorite meal? What was your favorite thing to wear that year?
Favorite place we visited? What do you hope to accomplish next year? And then we go back and reread from the previous year, right?
What answers we had given, just to kind of compare. And
some of them were really funny because the kids are changing so quickly. Their interests change and stuff. They get tickled at what they said last year.
So as we learned how to reprioritize our lives, what effect do you think that had on our kids?
Well, I think our kids, number one, they saw our efforts.
Yeah.
And I think that even in their own way, although they may not have fully understood at that time, like kind of everything we were processing, they appreciated our
having
efforts.
Mommy and Daddy time.
Yeah, they loved the time that we had together. Yeah. So, and it was really fun to watch their friendship blossom. Of course, they shared a room at this point because they had a massive bunk room for an RV, but it still meant that they shared a bedroom. And oftentimes we would hear them in there, giggling together or whatever, and be like, "What are you two up to in there?" Nothing. But they actually, it was really funny. They actually taught themselves sign language so that they could communicate to each other in the back seat of the truck while we were driving.
Because it was always the case, like we would get into some kind of spot where I needed to focus and concentrate. Because we were driving around 11 tons of vehicle altogether that was 65 feet long with the truck and RV together. And there were some moments. And so I would get a little bit stressed out, and I was always listening out for the latest noise, a clunk, something that was grinding in the axles, or I don't know. I really would be on edge. And so like the noise from the back seat sometimes provoked me a little too much. And so they learned sign language. And I'm sure they probably had signs for the way that Daddy was.
I'm sure they had all the signs. So, but then there were some more sweet moments.
Yeah.
So, one that comes to my mind, gosh, Tyler was a little bitty thing, but it was actually the very first spring break. We had no idea what we were doing, and we waited till the last minute to make a reservation
That's
for
right.
spring break. And so we got into the only state park in the state of Texas that had any availability for spring break.
Yeah, we had the last spot.
So it worked out great, though. It was nice, and we had a great week. And but you and Tyler went out and were playing catch.
Yeah.
And throwing the ball back and forth, and he just big smile on his face. And then when it got dark, he just came up and climbed up in your lap and just sat there, and just things like that. And I actually snapped a picture of it. And I came across the picture the other day, and I was just like, oh, that was one of those moments, just so sweet. So, but things like that to, all four of us piling on our little love seat in the RV for a movie night. The kids love to do a family movie night on a Friday night. That became our thing pretty much. I think all of it benefited our kids.
And now Emily is 19, and she is going to college. And Tyler is 14, and he is about to start school.
High school.
Yeah, high school.
I think he's way more excited about that than Mom is. Mom is really nervous.
She is.
And I think, I'm nervous, not necessarily, he's going to do great.
Yes.
I'm nervous about all of the things that we just talked about.
Yeah.
All of the
schedule,
the busy, the getting caught in that trap of just always something going on. And we've kind of been out of that for so long. That's the part that I think makes me the most nervous about him going to school.
Yeah. It's a change in our family life that everyone comes across when your kids get older and they start to get more independence.
Yes.
So there are all those things added in as well. So, but we have provided our family with some of the best memories and some of the best times to build on.
Yes.
From this point forward, and I don't regret a second of it.
Oh, me either.
It was like the best thing we could have done.
Yeah, for all of us.
So a lot of people, when they think about us living on the road in an RV and traveling around the country, they've got this kind of...
It's romanticized.
Yeah, it's like, oh, lucky you, you get to be on vacation all year. And there were just a lot of challenges, as we all have in our lives. Everybody has challenges, just ours were different. So it wasn't...
I think only one challenge involved the police's help, though.
Yeah. And I think I was grateful for them being there and clearing that parking lot so we could get out of it. Anyway, another story. So it definitely wasn't a vacation.
Right. Yeah.
It was hard work. Had a lot of really wonderful moments, but yes, it was hard work too.
So it's truly an art form to train yourself to live in the present moment.
Yep.
That doesn't come easy for most people.
No, it doesn't.
And we're still a work in progress.
Yes, we are.
But we've managed to collect so many moments along our journeys thus far. And those moments live in a treasure chest in our hearts. And as our kids get older and busier with their own lives, those moments become even more valuable to us.
Yes, absolutely. So we hope that there was something that we shared today that will challenge you to look for those moments in your life. You know, maybe you're the type of person that is a worrier about the future, what's going to happen. This is a challenge to you to stop worrying about things you have no control over, but to live today and do the things today that you can do.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're the type of person that's kind of tied to your history. You're tied to the past in your life, of all of the hurts that have happened, the missed opportunities. And so you kind of live with a sense of regret. Wish you had done something different. This is a challenge to you to take your mind out of the past and live today and make a better future, so you have better memories to recall.
Yeah. So basically just, aim to be more present with the people that you love, and trust that when you do face difficult times, that there's a bigger plan that you may not be able to see right now, but it's there.
Yeah. And if you struggle with that, find a place where you can go out on your own and just be awe-inspired by your surroundings. That will give you a sense of perspective, a realization that the world's a bigger place than just what's immediately surrounding you, and that there are other people that need us to be present in their lives, for our communities to be stronger, for our families to be stronger.
Thank you guys for listening. In our next episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about community and how we found community on the road, how we have transitioned to our current community, and how important it is to have community around you.
Thank you again, Tyler and Kelsie, the hopeful few, for giving us permission to use your music for our podcast. It couldn't be more perfect. I think as we share more of our story in future episodes, it just become more and more evident that we do life together.
Yes. So check out their other music on Spotify. The link again is in our show notes. And if you have any questions you would like us to answer, or suggestions for things you would like us to talk about in our future podcasts, just email us at beautifulviewpod@gmail.com.
We hope you have a great day, and remember to always keep an eye open for opportunities in this moment to see a beautiful view.
We could climb a mighty mountain, float on down a winding river, travel back in time and face our future too. Oh, I'm not scared of where I'm going, 'cause I know whose hands I'm holding. Oh, I'd go anywhere as long as you're going too. And I'd go anywhere as long as I'm with you. Yeah, I'd go